2.5 weeks ago I found a human tooth in my pocket. I don't know how it got there. I was sitting in an AA meeting when I found the tooth in my pocket. This was 2.5 weeks ago. I always hit the Saturday night meeting in the city. It's 15 minutes from the apartment I share with my girlfriend, but mostly I like the ambience. It's on the 3rd floor of a place junkies and drunks call the Hilton of Rehabs, a fat 5-story hospital on the outskirts of the inner city, on a row populated mostly by mid-range hotels, cut apart from the main CBD by a big sprawling park. It's run by long-time sober folks, but because of the location you get a lot of newbies, and I like that, because sometimes you forget things, you know. Like what made you trade the bottle in for a little bronze medallion and some lukewarm coffee and a stale cookie. An older lady was near tears, halfway through her share, when it occurred to me to check on how many cigarettes I had left. I was thinking already about the gas station on the corner by my apartment, and how I shouldn't be smoking at all and need to quit, and I reached into my pocket to look at my pack of parliaments and I felt it. A little lump, smooth and hard yet with an odd, almost rubbery texture to it. Like a pebble left underwater for a long time. I took it out of my jacket pocket and looked at it and couldn't believe it. It was a fucking tooth. How does this happen? I must have been making a face, and rightly so. How goddamn revolting, because Richard, a guy the first usually sit beside at this meeting, leaned over and asked if I was alright. I put my hand back in my pocket with the tooth and smiled and whispered, "Yep, all good," and he nodded and turned back to the lady at the front. She was wrapping up, talking about how things were so different now. Her kids were back in her life. Her job hadn't let her go after all. All that happy horseshit. She was smiling while she spoke, a big smile, lips split wide. I'd heard her story before, right down to the bottom. She'd been a bag lady and in bug houses and here and there. Now she was in a nice sweater and skinny jeans, nice shoes. But her teeth betrayed her. They were yellow and black and gapped. They were drunk's teeth. Half an hour later I begged off from getting a cup of coffee with Richard and booked it to my car. A relic from my drinking days, a beat-up Ford truck with a taped-on rear-view mirror and a broken right side window lever, bumps and gouges and scratches all over it from driving drunk all over the place. I just couldn't get rid of it. I don't know why. I lit a cigarette in the cab and took the tooth out again and looked at it and wondered why I hadn't said anything to Richard, why I was already thinking about keeping it from my girlfriend. It was a weird occurrence, for sure, conversation-worthy at least. "Hey, Jim, what's that in your hand?" "Oh, this, Richard. A fucking tooth I found in my pocket. What's up with that?" Laugh. End conversation. Maybe he could have helped me figure out how it had got in there. It wasn't a particularly interesting tooth, anyway. It was white with a slight yellow hue to it, like whoever's mouth it had been in had been healthy enough, but maybe not the type for whitening treatment or bleaching or whatever. I couldn't tell which tooth it was, like where it came from in the mouth, cause I'm no dentist. Nor did I know any offhand, but my girlfriend was a nursing student, and maybe she did. I always liked mysteries, odd things that can't be explained. When I was drinking, and this routine rarely wavered in all the years I spent staring at the bottoms of bottles and tumblers, I would start the night off reading some novel or other, but by the time I was in my cups pretty well it always ended in the same place: detective stories. Unresolved things. Rippies, believe it or not. I figured I'd ask my girlfriend when I got home if she knew somebody from school that could help with a tooth problem I had. With her studying and me in an entry-level industrial job, we didn't really have dentist money or insurance. Once I got with the friend, if there was a friend, I could figure something out from there. So I drove home. Into a buzzsaw I didn't expect. That made me forget about the tooth entirely, for a while anyway. She was gone. The apartment was empty, save the cat, Apollo, who walked around yelling as soon as I came in the door, his tail twitching, bright green eyes level and dispassionate like always. I called Kelly's name a few times and walked from room to room, but our apartment was small, 2 bedrooms and a living room with a kitchenette, ratty as hell, and she was nowhere. No note on the fridge, on the kitchen table, on the bed, nothing. This wasn't like her. We were mostly attached at the hip, the two of us. It had been like that the 2 years we'd been together, and we both liked it, despite what people say about codependency. We were mostly attached at the hip, the two of us. It had been like that the 2 years we'd been together, and we both liked it, despite what people say about codependency. Anything I had to do without her, my meetings, for instance, I always messaged her when I got there, when I got home, and usually I heard back both times. I checked my phone and she'd texted me back 10 minutes after I'd messaged her saying I'd left the meeting. "See you soon, love you," is all it said. Nothing on her Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. I called her once and her voicemail picked up immediately. Her car was outside, where she usually parked it. All of her clothes were in the closet, her switch and her phone were charging by the bed. Her phone was off, which explained the straight-to-voicemail call I'd made, and when I turned it on it came to a lock screen that I didn't know the password to. Nothing was missing, or amiss. I went outside for a cigarette to try to calm down. Our balcony looked out at the little curve of the road we lived by, residential street with the train line running alongside it. The train didn't shake our apartment, but it made noise. The track was quiet that night. I couldn't hear anything except the trees rustling in a light wind. There was a guy on the street. Or a woman. A person, I guess. They were wearing a hoodie with the hood up, obscuring their face. They were standing on the sidewalk. They were looking at me. My hair stood up on end and I thought about another night a long time ago when I was drinking, a time I was in a bar and there was this guy, quiet, standing in front of me while I was waiting to get a drink, and he was taking his time counting out change to pay for his beer, and I said something dumb to him to hurry up, and he turned and looked at me and he didn't say a word, but his face was so cold. This lone figure in the street gave me the same feeling that guy in the bar had, that I was in somebody's crosshairs. Stupid, I know. Or irrational. Leftover paranoia from a lifetime of substance abuse. I blinked and held a hand to face, smoke curling around my eyes, and when I took my hand away and looked again, this person was still there. I just stared and slowly they turned and sauntered past my vision, up the street somewhere. It wasn't much later I called the police. The cops didn't do much. Did they ever? I felt stupid at first for calling them to begin with. She wasn't even gone 24 hours, and they got me to ring up Kelly's parents and a friend of hers and some of my friends. Nobody knew anything. Kelly's mom freaked out, for good reason. Her daughter and the love of my life had had mental health issues for the past few years, and when I called the cops again the next morning with no sign of her, they took it seriously. They checked with her work. They checked flight lists and bus lists. They checked her credit card, but it was with her wallet at home. They searched our apartment top to bottom. They went through her phone, with my permission. Nothing unusual save the fact that apparently she'd been looking up wedding rings. News to me, news I would have happily welcomed anyway. I really loved her. Love her. I really did. I really do. A week passed in a blur. I kept going to work, I fixed motors, and tried to keep it out of my mind. The apartment felt dark and empty. I went to meetings every day. I didn't tell the police about the guy the first saw on the street. I never told him about the tooth I'd forgotten about, both in all the panic. What do you do when you wait for someone who may never come back? Who left without a trace, a word? I hated myself at first, thinking I'd driven her away. I'm a self-flagellant, sober or otherwise. Then I got scared. What if she was hurt? What if she was taken? I chain-smoked and stared at the walls of the laptop screen. I stayed away from bars and liquor stores. If she came back, I didn't want it to be to a drunk, no matter how fragile I was emotionally, how much I could feel my sanity draining. The first day of the second week of her disappearance, I got an envelope full of teeth in the mail. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more Reddit content.